What is up, Bills Mafia? Wednesday night, the bye week is in full effect, but you know we couldn't leave you hanging. Shout, a Buffalo Bills football podcast back in your life for the Staple Show. Wednesday night, we got a lot to get into. Our Shout insiders have had their fingers going here tonight, sending us a lot of questions that we're going to dive into tonight as well. We got a couple of a new feature for the Shout Bills insiders. They're going to send a couple videos in, and we're going to react to those videos live on the podcast. We'll take this out for a spin. We'll see how it goes. Shout is brought to you by Tops Friendly Markets, as always. And right now, Tops Christmas bonus is going on, and you can be Santa's biggest little helper. Shop for groceries at Tops, and you can save $10 on participating $50 gift cards. That's an extra 20% savings on all your holiday gifts, just for buying your groceries at Tops. Earn one gift point for every grocery purchase you make of $50 or more now until December 24th. Then redeem one gift point at Tops checkout for $10 off a gift card at participating real retailers. Ryan, check out some of these. Barnes & Noble, Kohl's, Cabela's, Macy's, Best Buy, Fanatics. If you've been looking for a new Bills jersey, get yourself a Fanatics gift card with the Tops Christmas bonus program. Outback, Chili's. Man, if Matt Bovee could see this selection of gift cards, he'd be on his way to Tops. Check out topsmarkets.com for more details. What's up, buddy?
Hey, not too much. I see the chat's already pretty lively. Hello to everyone saying hello to us. Bye week, like you said, but still plenty to talk about.
So we have this new feature on YouTube. Johnny Mac has become a official Shout YouTube member. And what that gives you is a whole different level of access to us. We're going to kind of test it out a little bit over the next couple of months. But in the live shows, that gives you priority with your comments. We always see them there. We also appreciate the super chats. We already got one here from Dan Leary. We'll get that up on the screen here shortly. There's a lot of odds and ends to get to, though. Like before we jump into this episode, Ryan, you're going to be in Buffalo this Saturday.
Yes.
Big event. Wingnut 700 Military Road Shout returns. And what that means is you need to come out inside Froth Brewing Company. We're going to hang out. We're going to eat wings. We're going to drink beers. We're going to talk Bills. We're going to do a live podcast. It is going to be so much fun. Everybody's going to come out and hang. And we'll try to keep hope alive for you, because I know that this is a really, everybody's down in the dumps right now. I just had my son over at basketball practice, and I had a couple people walking up to me almost like, tell me some good news, man. Give me some good vibes. Like, tell me that there's hope. So maybe we'll provide a little hope on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think we're definitely going to provide some hope. We're going to also provide some opportunities for some great food and great beers. So come join us at Wingnuts on Saturday night.
All right, so let's start at the top. And a lot of the questions that have come in from the Shout insiders have been kind of about our main topic tonight. And that is just the overall heat that I feel like has been applied to Sean McDermott over the last couple of weeks. I mean, you and I have both been pretty critical of him on this show, but I want to start with the premise that, there's a lot of people in Bills Mafia right now that are ready to pull the plug, that are ready to move on, thinking about other coaching options. What is the out from the Sean McDermott era, and starting to envision what it could look like on the other side. I got to be honest at the start, and we're going to talk about all the things that have gone on this season and what, where we should be at with the Sean McDermott being the head coach of the Bills. But I'm not there yet, Ryan. I don't think he should be fired. I don't know. There's been some things that haven't gone right this year. And them sitting here at 6-6, I don't think is where he wants them to be, where Bills fans want him to be, where Josh Allen wants them to be. But I do think that there is some value in remembering that the grass isn't always greener, that you'd have to then put all of your faith in the brain trust of this organization led by Terry Pegula to be able to find a replacement. And I just don't know if I'm necessarily there yet. Could I get there over the next 6 weeks? Sure. There's a lot that could happen. A couple more of these kinds of situations. The Denver game comes to mind. The New England game comes to mind. And obviously this Philadelphia game, which with victory in their sights. But I'm not there, and I want to start off on that premise before we talk about too much about how much his job might be in danger.
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. And I'm kind of right there with you. The Bills would have to pretty much collapse these last 5 games. You would have to lose control of the locker room in terms of some things that we have not seen with the players in this regime whatsoever in their entire tenure. So it would take a lot for me to get there. Now, what I think could happen is he returns, but maybe there's with a circumstance where he has to come out and he has to hire a defensive coordinator. I don't care if it's someone in house. I don't care if it's someone from the outside. Maybe that's like the one thing that they say is, hey, you're the head coach. There's a lot on your plate with that as is. It can still be your defense, but there needs to be a defensive coordinator in place in 2024. I think that scenario is a lot likelier than them moving on from Sean McDermott entirely.
So I talked about this a little bit. We taped Buffalo Kickoff Live today, and Johnny Mack, a little shout out to you, buddy. He said, hi, guys. McDermott is going to be here until the end of the season and most likely going forward. And I think that that's right. And unless something crazy happens, people have asked me, has he lost the locker room? And I don't think that we're there yet. I think that there's some people that might be frustrated in that locker room right now, no doubt about it. But I don't think that we're to a point yet where guys aren't listening to his message. I don't think you go on the road and play a game like that against the Philadelphia Eagles in their house if the locker room is lost. And listen, this is a defense still that it's important to remember. They're down a bunch of guys. I mean, Tre'Davious White, Daquan Jones, Matt Milano, that's real. Like, as good of a season as Terrell Bernard has had, I wonder if it wouldn't be even better if it was next to Matt Milano this entire time. And so, Thad Brown, he's on Buffalo Kickoff Live with me, and we were kind of shooting this around on the show, and then during the commercials today. That airs 11 o'clock on Sunday, so check that out before you settle in for a Sunday slate. About, okay, you fired the offensive coordinator a couple weeks ago. There's, to me, some real concern that I have for Sean McDermott at this point, being the defensive coordinator and the head coach at the same time. I don't know if he's necessarily good enough at all of it, managing all of it, I should say. He's a hell of a defensive coordinator. Let's not mix words there. But to run the show as the CEO of the team, oversee some of the offensive stuff, all while being, head buried in the defense for most of the game, and rightfully so. He's done a great job as the defensive coordinator this season. I think that he should really give some consideration to what he talked about back in training camp, handing over the reins of calling the plays on defense to somebody on his staff. I know that he wants to do it himself. I understand it. I respect it. But I think they have to be completely buttoned up going down the stretch. There's no wiggle room now. You don't have any room for error. The problem is, though, and Thad brought this up, and I thought it was a good point, can he fire 2 coordinators in less than a month? Because if he were to hand over the play calling duties to, say, Bobby Babich, who I think to me is the top candidate to be the DC next year, I'd start that train right now. He'd ultimately be saying that, he's not firing himself, but the sense of that they're moving in another direction. Does he want to make that admission? And sometimes I don't think you can be prideful in these moments. I think you have to do what's best for the team. And we saw them kind of get a little juice when I think it was John Butler was calling the plays earlier in the season. I don't know if that would be the person that you hand it over to now, but whatever the case may be, there should be some consideration for it.
Yeah, I don't know if they would do it for the last few weeks of the season, but I think in the offseason you do. You have to pick someone, whether it's Butler, someone that has a little bit more experience under his belt than a guy like Babich. But you and I have both talked about Babich, and I said star potential at training camp in terms of I think he's going to be one of those guys that rises through the ranks and will be a head coaching candidate sooner rather than later. So I wouldn't mind handing the reins over to him this offseason and letting him kind of work around the Sean McDermott defense and see what he can do. He's done a really nice job, obviously, with Terrell Bernard. And, he inherited a Matt Milano, but he still is keeping Milano at that all-pro type level. So he's a smart coach. He's well-liked by all of the linebackers in that locker room. There are candidates in-house, and that doesn't mean the Bills can't go outside as well. But, yeah, I think that's one thing, at least going into 2024, that needs to be done if Sean McDermott returns, is you need to find a defensive coordinator so you can focus on being the head coach of this football team and everything that comes with that.
We are bustling over on YouTube right now. Smash that like button, subscribe to our channel as well. We are creeping, Ryan Talbot, all the way up towards 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. We're so appreciative of this community that we have here on YouTube. I want to pivot a little bit into Joe Brady because he, to me, is really important in this last stretch of the season. And, I titled this video, how much, trouble is Sean McDermott in? Whatever the words that I used. Is Sean McDermott's job as Bills head coach in danger? I do think that there's some danger there, for sure. Can Joe Brady help save it? And honestly, I think Joe Brady is the most important key in all this, even more so than McDermott maybe choosing to let somebody else call the plays, because of what it's meant for Josh Allen. Right, over the last 2 weeks, it's looked like a completely different person. I mean, the swagger, the way that he's been competing on sidelines, the fun kind of coming back to him on the sideline, or on the field when he's playing. He came up, he rolled up off of that after that second rushing touchdown and kind of rose like a scene out of the Terminator. And he had his arms kind of coiled and it looked like it was flexing on the guy that tried to tackle him. It's that's Josh Allen. That's the dude that everybody fell in love with over the last couple of seasons, and he hasn't been there. And to be honest with you, I think a big problem in all this is the way that the Bills went into the season with their marching orders for their quarterback. And I understand it, and I almost respect it. You don't want him to get hurt. He has that shoulder injury he's been dealing with all season. When you play a physical style, you tend to get banged up a little bit. And over time, over the years, that's going to get less and less, conducive to staying healthy. But it's obviously changed him, Ryan.
Yeah, 100% has changed him. What's ironic is, I believe in both instances of his shoulder injury, it's happened when he's been in the pocket. It hasn't necessarily been when he's been a runner. Now, has he re-aggravated it when he's landed on it? Yes, absolutely. That's happened. But I feel like in 2 games, and again, it's a small sample size, it feels like Joe Brady has told Josh Allen, we don't want you to be a runner first. We don't need that from you. But when the opportunity is there, when it's a 3rd down and 6 and no one's open and there's pressure in your face, don't hesitate to go downfield if you can move the chains with your legs. It felt like earlier this season, whether it was Ken Dorsey, Sean McDermott, a group effort, it really felt like they were telling him, do not run whatsoever for the most part, because he would sit and he would scramble and he would wait and try to throw it downfield and move the chains that way. And I get it. Like you said, as you get older, those injuries will start to take their toll on any quarterback. But it wasn't working, and the Bills were not putting together 4 full quarters of football. In 2 games, the offense has looked great for 8 quarters. They've put up 30-plus points against 2 really good defenses. Josh Allen is firing on all cylinders. They're spreading the ball around. Stephon Diggs had a touchdown in this last game, but he has not been, given the bulk of the he's getting a good amount of targets still, but he's not getting as many necessarily as he was, where they felt like they were forcing it to him. Gabe Davis 1 week doesn't have any targets. He has over 100 this week. They're really spreading it around. They're utilizing their weapons. We know about Kincaid, so on and so forth. So I do like the way that Brady has done things on offense in 2 games.
I also like the demeanor of the new coordinator. And I'll be interested to see if they continue to have this success on offense. Do they remove that interim tag in season and just say, hey, listen, let's do a deal. We want you in place. We want you to be with Josh Allen. We want you to be the offensive coordinator. Not to mention, potentially gives you that answer long-term if you ever do decide to move on from Josh Allen. Because one thing that's really, from Sean McDermott, what's interesting about a potential move, first of all, if Brady goes off here in this last 8 weeks and he hits the market, maybe, right? Those assistant coach contracts are usually for 2 years, maybe 3 years. So he might still have status of that. But if he were to move on, or if you were to move on from Sean McDermott and bring in an offensive coach to be the new head coach, are we convinced, Ryan, that Josh Allen just automatically links up with a new offensive scheme and everything looks the same learning a whole new system and building a whole new set of rules and a whole new understanding, which with what's probably going to be a bit of a personnel turnover, especially in the skill position room. I mean, Gabe Davis, there's a good chance he's not back next year. Deontay Hardy, Trent Sherfield, good chance both of those guys aren't back next year. Good chance the Bills go out and draft a new wide receiver. And so I don't know, like as much as people are talking about like Ben Johnson and the offensive coordinator from Houston, Ben Slowick, I think his name is, there's a little bit of a risk there with whether or not Joe Brady leaves, whether or not it's a new head coach, about like syncing that up with Josh Allen, something totally new.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when you have an elite quarterback, you would anticipate that he would still make the offense go to a certain extent. But if things are not a great fit necessarily, it could look kind of like what it did under Ken Dorsey. There's going to be weeks where maybe they put up over 30 points. There might be some weeks where they stall out. There might be a learning curve for a chunk of the season where, again, 2 weeks, but you've seen what this offense looks like under Joe Brady. And this is not necessarily the Joe Brady playbook either. He's using the Ken Dorsey and Brian Daboll playbook that Josh Allen has been very comfortable with for the last few years. And if he does get that interim tag removed and remains as offensive coordinator for the foreseeable future, you're probably going to still see a lot of those elements. But it also give him an entire offseason to incorporate some things that he wants to do, some things that maybe worked for him at LSU. It might allow him to go out and really, see who's on the free agent market. I'm not sure what Terrence Marshall's status is like, but he's one of those low-end free agents that I could see the Bills getting in free agency. Like you said, drafting a wide receiver high. Really saying, hey, Joe, we were impressed with what you did at the end of last season. We're going to let you incorporate some of your own things. We're going to let you spend, we're going to let this team spend a high pick on a wide receiver. We're really going to try to build around Josh Allen in this offense. And I think that's a better option, going with what as long as it continues to go well down the stretch here, than the unknown. Because as good as some of these coordinators are right now, they're going to be up for head coaching jobs. You also don't know who they're bringing in as their offensive coordinator, and if it's going to be as in sync as what it is in their current situations with their current teams.
Christy Allen, one of our regulars in the Shout Insiders, she's got it all figured out. Smash that like button. Subscribe as well. I think we're over 200 watching live on YouTube right now. We got a super chat from Dan Leary that I want to get to here in a moment. And actually, let's get to the super chat, and then we'll pivot to Vaughn after that. Could the Bills lose both A.J. Epinesa and Leonard Floyd to free agency? Aside from Rousseau and Vaughn for cap reasons, could we see a retooling of the defensive end position this offseason? Ryan, why don't you start here?
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely see both of them go. And if I'm Leonard Floyd, for instance, at one, I don't think he's going to have to sit on the market nearly as long. I know he had 9 sacks last year with the Rams. Now he comes to a new team. He has 9.5 right now. He's playing at a high level. He's shown that he can come to another team, another system, and still perform. I think there's going to be some teams out there that want a veteran presence like that. AJ Epinesa could leave as well, but I also think that there's probably, a comfort level between Epinesa, this coaching staff, the system, knowing that if he goes somewhere else, it might not work out, a la a Shaq Lawson, and again, different position, but a Jordan Phillips, for instance, where, they cash in free agency, they go elsewhere, and it just doesn't work out. Systems matter, and, he's been in this system for quite a few years now, and things are finally clicking. I think there's more of a chance to reach a compromise or a middle ground with Epinesa because, again, he has not been an every down starter. He's performed well for this team. I don't think you have to break the bank for him, but is it a possibility that you lose them both? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a team that's going to have to restructure some contracts, cut some players, perhaps some household names to get into a decent cap situation. But I still don't think they're going to be able to go out and break the bank necessarily or pay some of their own guys or other guys out there big money that are players that are looking for that type of salary.
Yeah, they're looking. I don't know if they have to address the position in the draft high. Like they could probably look to get a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick at the edge rusher position and try to add somebody to the rotation. I think they have a really good idea at this point at what works in their scheme and the kind of player that they're going after. And like for Kingsley Jonathan to come in here and look good at times like he has, maybe there's a style now that they've landed on. As far as Epinesa and Floyd, I don't know if Epinesa's market, even if he reaches like say 10 sacks, right? Like he has a big game coming up here. I don't know if his market's going to be as plush as you would think, only because think of the last couple of years and some of the, um, scary stories that teams have seen when teams played big money for players. Remember Emmanuel Agba, who got that big deal from Miami a couple of years ago, and he's never really lived up to it. Carl Lawson hasn't really lived up to it. Akwara from Detroit was somebody that, remember we were talking about him getting a lot of juice, and I'm not sure if that any of those guys have made the kind of splash to make allocating those kinds of resources on the free agent market worth it. As far as Floyd, and so Epinesa to me is a guy that, like, all right, you sit down at the table and you say, you've gotten to this point, you're really good, you're part of our rotation. We see you as like number 3 next year with a bullet. Boogie's gone. Sign a 1-year deal, cap friendly, go out and have a big year, and then you can cash in on the other side of that. That would be my pitch anyway if I was Brandon Beane. Floyd he's working against time. Like, who's willing to really pony up the big money, even if he does end up having a 12, 13 sack season? He's probably going to get it somewhere because he's a really good pass rusher. He's bendy, he's quick, he's athletic, but he also does get banged up quite a bit. He's played through some injuries this year, and I think that could work against him. Man, Brandon Beane's been pretty good with these kinds of moves over the years, these latent free agency, second wave type of deals. But man, I wonder if he's wishing he would have worked something out in the Daquan Jones category of a deal with a 2-year deal.
Yeah, I'm sure right now, knowing the results that he has seen and knowing how much he has helped the front four when they haven't had to send additional pressure and help, that you probably would like to have him under contract for a second year, knowing that after next year maybe that is where the age starts to catch up to him. He does start to fall off a little bit, but right now he hasn't shown any signs of falling off. And to your point, he does get banged up a lot, but to his credit, he plays through it as well. And that's something too where I could see him or that being an attractive feature to a team. So when it comes to Floyd, I wouldn't be surprised if at this point in his career he's just trying to latch on with a contending team, which that could again be Buffalo, a team that has a chance to win another Super Bowl, but also get paid a fair rate for his production.
I want to talk about Von Miller really quickly before we pivot into the fan question portion of tonight's program. And just so you know, like the plan for Saturday night, we're going to take a long look at the schedule, the remaining games that the Bills have. Can the Bills make a playoff run? Like the matchups, like what it'll mean for the Bills in each game. That's going to be a big part of our show. We have a bunch of questions that were sent in from the Shout Insiders. We're going to get to a bunch of those tonight, but whatever we don't, we're going to kind of push off into Saturday. So if you're watching, Insiders, we'll take care of you. Don't worry. We'll get to all those questions over the next 2 shows. So I asked Eric Washington on Monday about Von Miller because we haven't really gotten a lot of update recently on where the progress is of that knee injury. He's still wearing the brace. It just hasn't been good enough, Ryan. Like, you're watching it game after game and you're just wondering, when is there going to be just like a little sliver of hope for what he can, be? I tweeted it before last game that I thought, hey, listen, Von's Von. Eventually he's going to get back to where he's at. But, you watch that game last week, and I know it was in the rain and like, so slippery surface, maybe not as secure. I don't want to make excuses for him, but, there was maybe one play in that game where I thought I saw some juice from Von Miller. So I asked Eric Washington about it, and I said, what's the level of concern here? And he didn't really answer that part of it, but he quickly got defensive and said, listen, Von's sacrificing, right? Like he's trying to be there for his team, which says to me, like, he's probably not at a place yet where he probably should even be playing or is ready to be back fully at 34 years old to come back off that serious kind of injury. He mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I think it was about a month ago, when he said this has been much different than the first time he tore the ACL. So I don't know, Ryan, that this could be a situation where he never ramps it back up to anywhere close to where you thought you were hoping to get him.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Again, age, second time he's had a serious type of injury like this. I think right now, if the Bills are smart, you have them out there, but you're not putting them out there in the third down situations. I feel like that's actually hurting your team. Not having your best pass rushers out there, having letting it be Floyd and Epinesa or even Shaq Lawson's shown some juice at times. I'd rather have Von Miller out there, on a pitch count, even if it was on first or second down at sometimes. Let him play against the run. Let him try to get after the quarterback at times, but the way they've utilized him at certain points where you have him out there on third down situations, I think it's hurting this pass rush more than anything else. He's not getting home. It's allowing quarterbacks a little bit more time. But you're right. We might never see that version of Von Miller, even the version that started out last season with Buffalo and was playing very well. I doubted that we were ever going to see elite Von Miller when he signed with the Bills because of the age and everything like that. I still thought you could get a double-digit sack type of production out of him. But when you have Floyd and Greg Rousseau, who for whatever reason I haven't mentioned up until this point, and guys like Shaq Lawson and things like that, let them play in the passing downs. Let them try to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. You can still use Vaughn on earlier downs, put him on that pitch count, see how we can help you in that regard. But you want to have your best guys out there in the third down plays, the fourth down plays when games are on the line. And right now, he is not one of your best players.
And so I asked Washington too. I said, are there any signs that you're seeing that maybe, we're not seeing as, I'm not a football coach and he's much more in the weeds with it all. And I know fans are frustrated and there's different levels of understanding of what they're actually looking for. As a matter of fact, there was a clip of Miller that went viral where I think it was Armando Salguero that kind of like took a run at him for what was obviously looked like a stunt. Like it looked like he was running into the guard to try to set something up for the tackle coming on the side.
Yep, 100%. That's what it was. But people that don't understand the stunts and things like that took it like he was lost or that he wasn't going after the quarterback. Like you said, it was kind of a hit job at Von Miller on social media, and people that didn't understand that if you just view it, you're like, what's this guy doing? But if you understand the stunts, it was pretty clear what he was trying to do there, Matt.
Yeah, and you got to be careful with those folks that have covered the Dolphins. Salguero's, he's covered them for years. There's a lot of pom-poms on that beat. And that's all I'll say. That's all I'll say.
He's not even the worst one. I'll say something.
He's not even the worst one. I mean, I really like Adam Beasley. He's a good dude.
Yeah,
I've a few times, but man, does he carry some water. And so does
Joe Shad.
Joe Shad, dude.
He might as well just put on a jersey.
Dude, he loves it. We got to get him on the podcast because he's pretty respected. Like he's an OG journalist. That's quite.
He's not hiding it now, though. He's not hiding any bias.
Not at all. But so anyway, I asked Eric Washington about is there anything that you've seen, and he said a couple weeks ago Vaughn had a really sharp inside spin move, the same move he used a year ago against Kansas City to get the quarterback down. That move came back for him. It was quick. It was sharp. He's in the quarterback's face. Unfortunately, the quarterback was able to get rid of the ball. He complemented that with a strong stab outside rush, was in the quarterback's face, and again, the ball was out. So I'm seeing those things. Those things won't show up in the scores column. They won't show up in the highlight reels. But from a person that's evaluating every step, those things are extremely positive, and he's encouraged by that. Now, listen, Eric Washington is going to build up Von Miller here. I mean, we're not seeing a ton of these things, but just those, it's just going to take one little play for him to unlock some confidence to maybe, spin it forward a little bit and put together a couple of good series of football.
Yeah, I agree with that. And obviously the Bills are on bye this week. Patrick Mahomes is a quarterback that gets the ball out quickly, but all it takes is one matchup where there's a quarterback that maybe holds the ball a little bit longer, and those pass moves pay off because the ball is still in their hands. It's tough. The release for some of these QBs these days, it's pretty insane. They get it out to their first read. They get it out of their hands in less than 3 seconds, and it's pretty wild.
It is pretty wild. And you know what else is wild? We have wild times in the Shout Insider text line. You should become a Shout Insider today by texting 716-528-6788. 27. My wife always yells at me that I say it too fast. We have a special new feature today. I put a call out to the insiders and I asked for video clips, 1 minute or less video clips of a take, a question. We're going to react to it live. And as always, the Shout text line is brought to you by Carrie C. Beyer, attorney with the law offices of Francis M. Litro, located at 237 Main Street, Buffalo, New York. If you or someone you know is seriously injured, give them a call at 716-852-1234 or check out litrolaw.com. All right, we're going to start, Ryan. See if I can fire this up and not screw it up. Adrian Sheffield sends us in our first video. Let's roll this thing, and then we will react to the thing afterwards. Here we go.
What's up, Bills Mafia? My name is Adrian. I'm from Buffalo. I live in Philly now. I was at the game Sunday, and a lot of my friends from Philadelphia area kept asking me, like, how is it possible that the Bills are 6-5? At that time, they were 6-5. And I explained to them some of the issues that we've had this year with the injuries, with offensive coaching and just other mishaps that I had this year. And they still couldn't understand, like, how in the heck are the Bills 6-5, now 6-6 with all this talent? The team is too good. And, it bothered me. And so today, one of my buddies called me and he looked up some things that I had taken for granted. For example, Josh Allen, he's number one in touchdowns, number one in passing touchdowns. He's top 3 in yardage. Cook is a top 10, number 6 running back. Diggs is top 3 in receptions. The Bills are number 1 in takeaways. The Bills are number 1 in sacks. So when I put that all together, I asked myself, like, wow, how is it possible that we're just 6-6? So that's my question, Bills Mafia. Help me out. How are we only 6-6 with all the talent and all those stats?
All right, Ryan. So there's the question. How are the Bills 6-6? Thank you to Adrian for sending that in. That is really, really cool. It'll be fun to interject these things in. And I think he brings up a really good point. It's like, you look at the production that this team has put up on both sides of the ball, to be near the top of the league in takeaways, to be near the top of the league in sacks. You're getting after the quarterback. You're turning over the ball, although there was a stretch there where they weren't turning over the ball at the same clip, and some of those losses are baked in there. But to have a season like this with Josh Allen, it's just, to me, like, it's the little details. And that's why I think I've been so hard on Sean the last couple of weeks, because in year 7, with the personnel familiarity, with the coaching staff familiarity, you have to have the details buttoned up. And I just don't know if the Bills have had that.
No, I agree with that. And injuries obviously factor in as well. But I think coaching is maybe the biggest talking point here. You look at the offense, they had a nice string of games early in the season against the Commanders, against the Raiders, against the Dolphins. And then they hit that lull. And they also had, a poor performance against the Jets. They couldn't put together 4 quarters of football. They were very limited in terms of their scoring that led to some letting some other teams into the games. You've had a defense that has lost 2 of their star players, in DaQuan Jones and Matt Milano, not to take anything away from Trey White. Trey White's a fine player as well, and you lost him. You have some special teams letdowns this season, in my opinion. You lose the first game in overtime to the Jets because of a punt return. You can look at the way this special teams unit has fared in some of these other games and big returns, penalties that have backed them up, missed kicks. Tyler Bass is at a 78% conversion rate this season on field goals. Had been around 87 the past 2 years, 82 as a rookie. So he's down significantly. The punting hasn't been good. The field position issues, complementary football. Sean McDermott has had his gaffes. You look at not going for the win with 20 seconds, burning one of those timeouts to let Jake Elliott think about it before kicking a 59-yarder, which, he made with a lot of leg extra. Little things like that add up over time. And you factor it all together, and it does feel like they are kind of wasting an MVP type of season from Josh Allen.
Great stuff from Adrian there. We got one more we have to get to. Mark, he sends one in here. He's at Disney World right now. Disney World or Disneyland? I think he says it in the video. Let's check it out right now.
What's up, guys? This is Mark coming to you from Animal Kingdom at Disney World. You have Expedition Everest back there. It was real tough watching the game and seeing all the Eagles fans around Disney World parks this week. And a lot of us are really down about our playoff chances. I wanted to hear what you guys think about how we should look at the rest of the season going forward, knowing the playoff chances aren't completely none, but they're very slim. What signs of improvement should we be looking for? Thanks, guys. Look forward to listening.
Thank you, Mark, coming to us from Disney World. That is super cool. And I think he brings up a great question, like, how are you approaching the end of the season? Now, I said we're going to go through the games and we're going to take it that direction, and maybe we won't go too far into that. But I do think, like, there's been some Bills fans that have been sharing mock drafts on social media, like starting to really dive into that part of things. I got an insider text today that said, man, I thought we were over this having to check mock drafts in November, but that's where a lot of fans feel like they're at. And I texted him back and I said, it's not the worst thing because there are some needs. Like, I think the Bills are going to have to hit in the draft, whether or not they make the playoffs or not, whether or not they were first in the division or first in the conference. Like, I'm looking at wide receiver. I'm going to be taking a long look at that crop as we kind of move into the offseason and towards the combine and the draft. Defensive tackle, Ryan, there's only one under contract. We're going to talk about Jordan Phillips in a minute here before we get out of here. There's a lack of depth, and Daquan Jones is not under contract.
Yeah, there's a lot to kind of process there. And shout out to him for the Ravenclaw shirt real quick. Wanted to point that out as a Harry Potter fan here too. So I love the shirt. But, looking at the rest of the way in terms of giving fans hope, one, the way the offense has been playing the last 2 weeks, I think that looking at this slate of 5 games, the Bills can play that type of performance over 4 quarters. They could go 4-1. They could even go 5-0. And I know that's asking a lot based on the inconsistencies that we've seen from this team this season in terms of all 3 phases of the game. But that would be my first, point where maybe there's a chance to sneak in as a wild card team. I see in the comments here, Miami has a tough slate toward the end of the season. Very true. They have the Ravens on their schedule late in the year. I'm blanking on the other big game. They obviously Buffalo too, but they have 3 in a row there late in the year. And now, as much as we scoff about Aaron Rodgers coming back, they do have the Jets again in mid-December. If Rodgers were to play in that game, I think that'd be a much tougher matchup for Miami than if it's Tim Boyle or Zach Wilson or whoever else they would roll out there at the quarterback position. So maybe there's a chance for a late season collapse for Miami. I'm not necessarily expecting that one, but there's certainly a chance. Dallas, that's the other matchup. Thank you, Larry, in the comments there. So, they have some tough matchups too, but the Bills obviously have to handle their own business first and foremost.
I also wanted to shout out Mattis over on YouTube. She sent us both an email thanking us for the shows the last couple of weeks. She's been in here from the beginning. And so I wanted to show a little love. I see her in the comments here. So I wanted to mention that as well. All right, let's get to a couple of these questions. We're probably going to only take 2 or 3. We're coming up on 40 minutes here, and we're coming with another 45-minute show probably-ish on Saturday. So I don't want to go too far tonight. Becky Meisenhall, one of our favorites. She's come out to a few of the live Wingnut show, which we're back Saturday night, 6 p.m. Wingnut, 700 Military Road. Do not miss it. If you're in town, make us a part of your weekend plans. What do you guys think about Jordan Phillips? I used to think he was a fun player and was initially glad when he came back, but I've grown tired of the personal fouls and the boneheaded plays, plus now he and Shaq fighting with fans. It also seems like a double standard how Cook is pulled out of the game for a mistake, but there never seems to be any consequences for other players, which I think is interesting. Jordan Phillips is really, it's such an interesting conversation because I was super high on the signing when they brought him back off the Arizona situation and didn't go the way that he wanted. He had that big year. He got paid, hits the free agent market. It made a lot of sense. But if we take the full body of work, and I know there's been injuries involved, especially more so last season, what's the level of production that you're getting for a guy that, I think fans have made a really good point that have commented on social media. Like, he's more known at this stage for, raising his arms and getting people juiced up. And it's important. But that can't be the only thing that you're really known for. From a defensive perspective, at times, Ryan, I think he's been the worst of the defensive tackles out there. And you have a guy in Poona Ford who can't get a jersey for some reason, sitting there not being able to play. And I just don't know if the level of play that Jordan Phillips has put out there has been good enough. And then you take into account, and we could talk about Jason Kelsey's comments about Jordan Phillips and that offsides penalty where he kind of drove Cam Jurgens into the ground. It didn't look like on the replay that he finished it with his helmet, but he definitely didn't pull off. And I don't know, there's a lot that goes on when you jump off sides and you're trying to stop a play in that short amount of time. I don't necessarily think that Jordan Phillips is a dirty player, but there's just a lot of extra stuff, the stuff with the fans too. Like, my question with that is, listen, Shaq Lawson, if you want to talk about a character guy, like I'd go to bat for him with anybody in the locker room. Like he is just a good dude. Like he's good to the fans. Like if he was getting into it with people, like I'd say there was probably a reason to get into it. But I would just wonder, Jordan Phillips going up to the security guard, constantly engaging, constantly yelling back. You got a football game to win against the Philadelphia Eagles. Why are you engaging in all of that stuff? Don't you have to kind of tune that out? And I get it. Like if fans are saying inappropriate stuff, I get that part of it and being upset with it. Trust me, I do. But I think from like the team perspective, it's the same reason I kind of banged on Cole Beasley a couple years ago for all the, vaccine stuff. Have the take, do whatever you want with it on your social media. But do you really want to be a distraction in a game setting or in a locker room setting when there's a bigger goal at play?
And it's a lot easier to be a distraction and get away with it when you're producing. And I don't feel like Jordan Phillips, to your point, is producing on the field at this point at a consistent level. If the Bills are looking to pay someone millions of dollars to wave their arms up in the air, have them give me a call. I'm up for it. I can wave my arms for 3 or 4 hours nonstop. I'll do it.
Let's
But
see it.
Jordan, just get them going. Just get them going.
Yeah, you gotta get the thing in there. You gotta get the thing in there.
Listen,
Ryan.
until the paycheck clears, I'm not giving 100%.
You're getting the vet minimum right there for that arm waving action.
I could live with that too. But no, Jordan Phillips on the field. You're right. It's the boneheaded plays. It's the jumping off sides. And Philadelphia game, I get in those short yardage situations. You're trying to time everything perfectly. Jason Kelsey was moving a little bit. He got called twice for false starts. And I think on the play in question with Cam Jurgens, when they zoomed in on Kelsey, he flinched again. This one just didn't get called. And when your eyes are on the center and you see movement, you go. Could he have pulled up? Probably. But it's not just this game. It's personal fouls in other games. It's 5-yard penalties. It's giving teams better yardage, first downs. That every now and then, which sometimes we see from Ed Oliver, for instance, it's okay if you're also producing on the field the way Ed is this year. Jordan Phillips has not been producing consistently, minus Ed Oliver and obviously DaQuan Jones, who's been out with an injury for a good chunk of the season. This defensive tackle position has been a bit of a mess this year in terms of consistency. Tim Settle's had some good moments. He's had a lot of downplay. Jordan Phillips, I feel like, has had more downplay than anything else. Poona Ford, they can't get him on the field. They're not giving him a jersey for some reason. So it's concerning for sure. And I do think that this is probably his last hurrah in Buffalo. I would be shocked if Jordan Phillips were back beyond this year.
Mm-hmm. Let's get to one more, just because this podcast has gone a little bit longer than I wanted to, since we're kind of like part 1, part 2 coming at you on Saturday on a bye. But Ali Calabrese sends one in, and if you send in a question and it didn't get in this episode, we will get it into Saturdays, or we'll do another one on Monday and resurface some of these as well. The video thing took a little bit longer, so apologies if I didn't get enough questions in here. On the topic of how warm McDermott's seat is, I see a lot of people defending him for bringing us out of the shadows for 20 years and breaking the drought in his first year with an underwhelming roster. While he's done plenty we're all grateful for, at what point do we raise expectations and not factor in a team that went to the playoffs 5 years ago only to lose to Jacksonville 10-3? That was fun 5 years ago, but all we should be caring about now is Super Bowl or bust. Additionally, folks say it'll be a while before Terry Pegula moves on from McDermott, as they have a close relationship and all that he's done for Buffalo. What factors do the health of Kim Pegula play into all of this? We haven't heard much at all about her lately, and imagine Terry has a lot on his plate and doesn't want to blow up what he has, let alone if she's a co-owner. Make sure she's in good standing before that type of decision is made. I guess I'm not sure what my question is here. Just a few thoughts I've had as we've reflected on McDermott's future here over the last month. On Kim Pegula, she's not serving in the role that she was in before. She was out at training camp a few times, which made some news, which was great to see. I don't think she's involved in the operations. Terry's involved. And I put out a couple texts about this earlier this week, Ryan. That to me is the kind of tough road to a change, in that Terry has empowered Sean, specifically Brandon as well, to basically run the operation. And I'm not saying that I don't think that he could kind of, get in there, pull it all back, make wholesale changes. That's definitely possible and could happen. But right now, it feels like Sean and Terry or Sean and Brandon are the face of the organization. We never hear from Terry Pegula on the Bills. Like, he doesn't speak at the owners' meetings. Like, he's not accessible. He's not available. And so right now, because you've empowered them the way that you have, I don't know what it would look like to alter course. Like, if you believe in Brandon Beane as the general manager and you want a new leader as the head coach, can you separate them? They kind of felt like a package deal, even more so that Sean got here before Brandon. I'd advocate that if you were to ultimately make a change, keeping Brandon Beane, because I do think, for as much as people kind of criticize him for some of the picks, he got the quarterback right. I think he's done a really good job building a sustainable roster for the most part. Now, there's questions now as we move into the next iteration of this thing, and that's something we could talk about. But I think he's done a pretty good job. In terms of Sean McDermott, I do think that there's heat there. I don't know if there's enough heat, like we said at the top of the show, to make a change.
Yeah, and they do feel like a package deal. I mean, both of their extensions were announced at the same time. They were both part of the whole ceremonial, the whole photo op for the new stadium. They both have a good relationship with Terry Pegula. They have a good relationship with one another from their Carolina days. It felt like Sean McDermott had a major say in bringing Beane aboard. But if they were ever to move on from McDermott, I'm with you. I think that they would keep Brandon Beane and let him try to handpick the next head coach, someone that he could be in sync with going forward. But as much as I think that Sean McDermott's seat is a little bit warm this year, I would be surprised, like we said earlier on in the show, if he were let go at the end of the year. You'd have to almost go 0-5 in this stretch, maybe 1-4. You'd have to have players being more public with their comments, criticizing him, something we haven't seen from any players in when they've been here in Buffalo. We've seen some players with some sour grapes after the fact. I think that Sean McDermott can lean into, I don't want to say excuse, but lean into the injuries on the defensive side of the ball as to why they had their struggles. He can point to Joe Brady in terms of, hey, look at this guy that has helped turn around the offense late in the season. We can bring him back. Like I said earlier, maybe you make him pick a defensive coordinator to take a little bit off of his plate. I'm anticipating him back in 2024, but 2024 could be would be the make or break season, in my opinion, for Sean McDermott, because, if this is the year that they don't make the playoffs, they don't get double-digit wins, that's something that this team has hung their hat on, at least with their regular season wins, 11, 12, 13, a few times here in their regime. But they've been falling short in the playoffs, and they haven't reached the championship since 2020. They haven't looked great in the playoffs since that 13 seconds game. Last year against Miami, they struggled. They obviously struggled against the Bengals. So I think next year is the true make or break season for Sean McDermott.
We'll end things out with this super chat from Deborah Holleran. Yeah, I think I said that right. Thank you, Deborah, for the super chat. Maybe McDermott should make Joe Brady assistant coach or managing coach and ask his opinion before taking a knee at 20 seconds. I think Brady is more aggressive. I do think that's a good point from the sense of Mattis says that Mike Florio reported that McDermott could be out. Mattis. Come on. We've talked about this before with Mike Florio. All right? Like, come on. Like, I can't with Florio. Sorry. I don't want to turn this into
He pretty much said he takes educated guesses. He throws darts at the dartboard, and he would rather, speculate and get something right than do nothing at all. And
if you want to find a Florio worth your time, Michael Florio,
yes.
Michael F. Florio on
NFL,
Twitter.
Fantasy,
right? Yes, he covers fantasy for NFL Network, so on and so forth. He does a great job. Deborah says maybe McDermott should make Joe Brady assistant coach. So I think that there's something to be said, and thank you, Deborah, for the super chat to close things out. Something to be said for their cohesion as they move forward and like empowering Joe Brady in a way to say, okay, you got the offense, right? Like maybe Sean McDermott felt like he had to like not hold hands. Like that's a disrespectful way to put it, but like oversee Ken Dorsey more succinctly, more matter-of-factly. And Brady brings experience in this position from Carolina, even though it didn't go well. Maybe he can kind of let him operate this thing a little bit more. And I thought it was interesting that Brady brought up this week when I asked him about James Cook getting benched. He said he wasn't benched. It was just part of the rotation. Whether you want to believe that or not, that is what it is. But to me, that says that was a Joe Brady call, not a Sean McDermott call, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been encouraged by everything I've seen from Joe Brady in 2 games. I'd like to see him have a little bit more say, maybe. I don't know if the assistant head coach thing would necessarily be that matter, but late in a game, go to him and say, do you have something where you think you could get us in field goal range if we had 2 timeouts in 20 seconds? And if so, let him kind of run with the ball, so to speak. When it comes to aggressiveness, though, there was a point where Sean McDermott was among, statistically, the most aggressive head coaches in the last few years. He had come a long way from what he was in 2017, 2018, even 2019. So he has shown an ability or a willingness to be aggressive at times. I do think that he shied away from that a little bit too much this season for whatever the reasons were. But if you can have the offense scoring 30-some points a game and moving the ball up and down the field for 4 quarters, I think you're going to get a little bit of that aggressiveness back from him.
If you want to get aggressive, you need to get over to Tops Friendly Markets and check out their delicious and convenient meals. They have some great, delicious meals on beef right now. I'm looking at this beef roast that they have at the middle of their ad, and it is mouth-watering, Ryan. Looking to spend less time in the kitchen, more time enjoying what you love? Try creating your next fall meal, winter meal, using 1 pot, 1 pan, or 1 skillet. Save time with convenient recipes that cut down on preparation and cleanup. Plus, find everything you'll need at Tops. Great recipes on 1-dish breakfast bake, barley risotto with butternut squash and kale. How about a slow cooker orange pumpkin custard? They have a bunch of recipes over at the website. Check out topsmarkets.com/one-pot-meals. All right, Ryan, that's going to do it. Come out on Saturday night. Tell them why.
Saturday night, Wingnuts, Bills Mafia. We'll get to some of the insider questions, but we also like to interact with Bills fans before and after the show. We have you on the show at times. So come out, join us. We are going to try to give you some hope here late in the season for a late playoff run for this Buffalo Bills team.
We'll do our best Joe Shad impression. All right, everybody. He's Ryan. I am Matt. We'll see you Saturday night. Just kidding.